And we are back. Joining us now, a man who discovered a new species of fossil macroalga, I hope I'm saying that right, which has been named in his honor
Yep.
and is now at display at the Hillsdale College. Dr. Anthony Swinehart is here. Hello, sir.
Hello, glad to be here.
So let's kick things off. I was gonna start with it sounds like this is a type of seaweed that you actually discovered.
Yeah, so it's a marine, very primitive plant called an alga, or plural is algae. And so, unlike your typical pond scum or slimes, these marine forms almost look like normal plants with stem-like structures and branches and things like that. So they're larger and more intricate than what a lot of people think about algae. So we call them macroalgae, which means they're bigger and more branched and that kind of thing, more complex.
Gotcha. So, I guess let's start with the beginning. What's the story behind this discovery?
Well, it actually goes back to about 1998 when I came to Hillsdale College and learned that we once had one of the finest college museums in the region, starting in about 1872. And due to a fire and neglect and so on, by the 1960s, it had gone by the wayside. And so when I came as a new faculty member, it was sort of a dream to rebuild the museum. And of course, to rebuild a museum, you need specimens. You need specimens for teaching, you need specimens for research, you need specimens to attract scientists from other institutions that are interested in collaborating. And one of the strengths of the old museums was rocks, fossils, and minerals. And so that's where I put a lot of my effort in terms of building up our collections. And so I started traveling all over the country, going to sites where fossils are abundant and common, and getting the common things first. And then if you happen across something rare, well, that's just sort of icing on the cake.
Mm. I have to imagine
So
it looks like you're actually standing in the museum right now. With this latest discovery, is that something you would consider to be a rare find?
Yeah, yes, very rare. So one of my college classmates works at a quarry in the Upper Peninsula, and that gave me an opportunity to collect there in a site that's from this, it's a marine deposit from the Silurian period, so it's 430 million years old or so. And one of the quarrymen came up with some interesting rocks that they thought might just be mineral stains. And a lot of times when you crack open a rock and you see something brown, it usually is a mineral stain. But in this case, it had structure and and looked to be an actual fossil or evidence of some past life. And at that time period, there weren't really any marine vascular plants that we know of. So the best candidate was an alga. And so I can't, as a scientist, you have to recognize your strengths and your weaknesses. And I have a lot of, background in modern marine macroalgae, worked a lot down in the Florida Keys, but not with fossils that are this old. And so the appropriate thing to do was to invite the world expert on marine fossil non-calcareous. So these are just soft parts, which very rarely preserve. The world expert on these, who happens to be at Eastern Michigan University, Dr. Steve LaDuca. And so the first ones I found were known species, but he started to get really interested because they were better preserved than the ones originally found to make the description of the species. And so he was like, well, where are you finding these? And I said, well, if you teach me what you know and we can work together, I'll show you.
A little give and take that I like that. So, I can't imagine that you necessarily got into the business to be honored in this way, but that has to be a pretty cool little bit of recognition.
Oh, it's awesome. I wanted to be a biologist, a scientist, since I was 7 or 8 years old. And, when you're a kid, you sort of dream about the future. And I would joke to people about, a new species and having my last name as the species name, never thinking it would actually happen. but it did.
Well, that is so cool, sir. And I guess I mean, I don't know if it's a quick answer, but what is seaweed doing in the Upper Peninsula?
Well, it's a great question. And so, as many people know, there is this process that we call plate tectonics, where the crust is divided up into about 12 or so crustal plates. And as a result of processes in the earth, convection of rock, very plastic rock, think of it sort of like ice, but it moves. And those plates, as a result of convection currents, move around. And so it moves the crust. So Michigan, at the time that this fossil was alive, would have been somewhere near or south of the equator. And so it's made its way to its current position over many millions of years. But there's also upheavals and changes in ocean level, so that at one time, Michigan was a shallow sea, and ultimately became what's called the Michigan Basin. So most of the rocks underneath the glacial debris, the glacial till and so on, most of the rocks in Michigan are marine sedimentary rocks until you start getting up. There's some igneous rocks in the UP and that kind of thing, but most of lower Michigan, maybe all of it, is marine sediments.
Okay. Well, talk about a cool science lesson on the 2 p.m. hour news. Dr. Swinehart, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.